And we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about Davante Adams. The Jets have now released him and where he could potentially end up. Now, one thing that you have to add into this is, well, let's see where Aaron Rodgers decides to play next year. If he does play, does Davante Adams end up, following him? So we'll see. The Jets, were taking calls from other teams regarding trades, but nothing ended up working out, so they just released him. And they save about $30 million in cap space. So that's good for them. Um, Davante Adams on the season, he finished with 854 yards and 7 touchdowns with the Jets. And he still got over 1,000 yards between the Jets and the Raiders. And I still think he can play. I don't know why there's people on social media saying he's washed. Is he the same player he was, a few years ago? No, but he still can play. And I think he's going to be someone that a lot of teams are going to be targeting. But like I said, I think it also is going to depend on where Aaron Rodgers ends up. Maybe he wants to go there. But also the team that signs Aaron Rodgers also has to sign Davante Adams. It can't just be like, no, we're not signing you. Or, if he desires to go there. And Davante also is going to want, a decent contract, I would imagine. So, but yeah, there's a lot of teams. I mean, you could look at, the Chargers are one team, that needs wide receiver help. One of my friends who's a big Herbert fan would love to see Davante go to the Chargers. Also, he could go back to, he could go with Aaron Rodgers, but he could also go back to where him and Aaron Rodgers used to play, and that's Green Bay, because Green Bay needs wide receiver help. Now, there's some rumors floating around of DK Metcalf being traded, which that would be something. But, we'll have to wait and see on that. But he could end up there. I know the Ravens, could use another wide receiver. I think that would be, that would be interesting if he ended up going there. You have him, Lamar Jackson, and Derrick Henry on the same offense. The Steelers are a team that, needs another wide receiver. So he definitely will have options on the open market. It just depends on where he ends up. But yeah, it's kind of a waste, for the Jets to trade for him at the time. And, I think some people, including me to an extent, was hoping that maybe, Davante getting traded to the Jets, then things would start to get going again, but it never happened. And Davante had some good games for them. I mean, the game against Jacksonville, he was solid. Had a touchdown against the Texans. He did have good games. There were a couple times where he had, drops were an issue, but it was more than just what the offense was doing. The Jets as a team were just a huge mess. And this new regime just wants to start fresh, which I can understand, but I don't know. I mean, wouldn't you want to keep Davante Adams? But Davante Adams probably wouldn't want to stay with the Jets then if Aaron Rodgers is not there. Probably wants to go elsewhere. And you don't even know who's going to be playing quarterback. And Davante Adams, if the Jets go in with Tyrod Taylor as a starter, you think Davante Adams is going to stay? When he was with the Raiders and he dealt with Jimmy Garoppolo and Aiden O'Connell and, then Gardner Minshew. So, yeah, he probably wouldn't have wanted to stay with the Jets if the Jets wanted to hold on to him. But Anthony in the chat said, how much do you think a team would have to build up for Michael Mayer because the Raiders are looking to trade him? I'm specifically asking this as a Dolphins fan. Would we have to give up a lot? I don't think so. I mean, I know he's still a relatively young player, and, he was a good tight end prospect coming out of Notre Dame. But I don't think you have to give up a lot to get him. Maybe like a fourth-round pick, maybe. I don't know. I'm just throwing something. I'm just throwing stuff out there. I don't think that you're gonna have to give up a lot. I'm curious to see where he'll end up. I'd like to see the Giants maybe try to get him because but Giants have Theo Johnson, but still, I would take another tight end. But that is interesting where he could potentially go. But I feel like wherever Davante Adams ends up, he's gonna play good football. I like I said, the Chargers I think would be a very good spot for him. Him and Herbert I think would do well together. And that would help out Ladd McConkey, take some pressure off of him. The Packers, I think that should be the team he should consider going back to. That's a place he's familiar with. Young quarterback, a young team that needs a veteran wide receiver in there. Because none of those wide receivers took the next step. They really didn't. Christian Watson was, I think, the biggest disappointment of them all because I was really hoping that he would stay healthy and he just didn't. And even when he was healthy, he really just didn't do much. But Jaden Reed I think took a step back after having a monster game one. Dobbs couldn't stay healthy. Dontavian Wicks really was a non-factor. And I'm not saying the receivers are bad. It's just I really thought going into the year that those receivers were going to take that next step, and no one really separated themselves. So Davante going there, and I think that would help out Jordan Love, because I think Jordan Love kind of regressed a little bit. But I think part of that too is because of injury. So Anthony also said, is Michael Mayer the perfect tight end for a Mike McDaniel in terms of what he looks for in a position? Is Michael Mayer similar to George Kittle? I got to be honest, I really couldn't tell you because, Michael Mayer, since he's entered the NFL, it's kind of been quiet. And now it didn't really help him when Brock Bowers got drafted by the Raiders because Brock Bowers took over. So I really couldn't tell you. And, maybe the Dolphins, they want to, keep riding Jonnu Smith because Jonnu Smith was really good for them last year. So, but it's going to be interesting where he ends up. And then he also said, how about Davante Adams to Tampa to have a weapon for Baker Mayfield? Well, I mean, they got Mike Evans. They got Jalen McMillan. We'll see if they bring back Chris Godwin. We are going to talk about the Buccaneers later in the show when I go over their season. But they don't really have a lot of cap space. Yeah, their offense kind of takes up a lot of their cap space. So I don't think adding a Davante Adams is going to help that. Now, they could rework the cap situation and make room, but yeah, I think the Bucs are good at receiver. If the Bucs need a receiver, I think if they end up losing Godwin, they'll probably draft one. But yeah, with Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan, I think they're good. And if they bring back Godwin, that's a plus. So I don't think Davante's going to Tampa. I think first we got to see where Aaron Rodgers ends up. And if he doesn't go with Rodgers, then maybe he goes back to Green Bay. He goes back out to the West Coast. Chargers make sense. It's going to be interesting. We also got to see where Cooper Kupp ends up because Cooper Kupp could be traded, but now maybe that's not guaranteed. Maybe the Rams try to work something out to keep him around. But it's going to be interesting. And then, you got T. Higgins who got franchise tagged. Are the Bengals going to be able to agree to a long-term deal with him? Or is he going to end up getting traded? Is Brandon Ayuk going to end up getting traded? DK Metcalf? There's a lot that could happen this offseason with wide receivers. And wide receivers got paid last year. Now we could see, wide receivers get traded. But let me know what you guys think, though, about Davante Adams. Where do you see him potentially ending up? Like I said, could all come down to where Aaron Rodgers goes. Rodgers wants to keep playing, which seems like he wants to. Could he go to the Giants? Because right now, I feel like that has a chance to happen. I think it's either going to be Rodgers or Russell Wilson as a starting quarterback next year for the Giants. It's going to be one of those two guys because I don't see them paying a big contract, giving Sam Darnold a big contract. And we will talk about Sam Darnold in the next segment. But I think that's what they're going to lean towards, one of those two guys, and they could trade up to take Cam Ward because it seems like that's a possibility. So they sign a veteran quarterback, and then you draft, Cam Ward or Shador Sanders. You have them sit behind the veteran for a year, and then hope that works out. But lately, a lot of things haven't worked out for the Giants. So, but Davante Adams is back to Davante Adams though. He is going to command money, but I think he's a guy that there are going to be teams lining up to try to get him, and he's going to want to go to a contender. Maybe the Buffalo Bills. But then again, I don't know. The Bills, they have to work. I think they have to rework their cap situation too. But that would be a good fit for him too with Josh Allen. We'll see. But let me know what you guys think. Where do you think Davante ends up? Let me know in the comments. So I did allude to it, but we will talk about Sam Darnold in the next segment when we come back from our next break. He did not get the franchise tag. And we'll talk about where he could potentially end up, if he can end up back with the Vikings. I know I did say that I think he will go back to the Vikings, but we'll talk more about it. We'll go into more depth with it when we come back from our next break. So, with that being said, make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.